The hospital room went silent. The moment her husband looked at the baby and said, "This is a mistake." She had waited years for this moment, years of pain, prayers, and empty nights. And now, finally, she held a child in her arms, a tiny life who needed her. But instead of joy, her world shattered. He didn't smile. He didn't hold the baby. He didn't even try. He just stepped back and chose to walk away. Imagine this. You finally become a mother, not by blood, but by heart. You choose love over everything. And the one person who promised to stand beside you forever leaves you in your weakest moment. That's exactly what happened to Emma. She adopted a baby girl. Beautiful, innocent, and full of life. But because the child didn't fit into society's expectations, her husband called it a mistake. And in that single moment, Emma had to make a choice. Lose her child or lose her marriage. She chose love. But what came after that decision, no one talks about. The sleepless nights where she cried silently so her baby wouldn't hear. The whispers from people who judged her without knowing her story. The struggle of raising a child alone while carrying a broken heart. And just when she finally found peace, just when her daughter became her whole world, the man who left came back, not with anger, not with pride, but with regret. Now imagine this. The same man who once called your child a mistake is standing in front of you asking for a second chance. Would you forgive him? Would you let him into your child's life? Or would you protect the world you built without him? Because this isn't just a story about love. It's a story about choices, about strength, about a mother who refused to give up, even when everything fell apart. And trust me, what happens when the past comes back will change everything you think you know about love, regret, and second chances. So stay with me till the end, because this story doesn't just touch your heart. It stays with you. The hospital room fell silent the second he said it. This was a mistake. The words didn't just hang in the air, they shattered it. Emma stood still, her entire body frozen, as if time itself had paused. The soft beeping of the monitor, the distant footsteps in the hallway, even the quiet rustle of the curtains, all faded into nothing. The only thing that remained was a tiny baby in her arms, and the weight of what she had just heard. "Say that again," Emma whispered, her voice barely holding together. She looked down at the newborn, wrapped gently in a pale pink blanket. The baby's skin was warm, her breathing soft and steady. She was so small, so innocent, so completely unaware of the storm she had just been born into. Daniel stood near the door, his hand gripping the handle like he was already halfway gone. His face was tense, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding Emma's. "I said this was a mistake," he repeated, this time colder, firmer. Emma blinked slowly, trying to understand how the man she loved, the man who had stood beside her through years of trying, hoping, and failing to have a child, could suddenly sound like a stranger. "A mistake?" she echoed. "Daniel, this is a baby." He finally looked at her, but there was something distant in his gaze, something unfamiliar. "This isn't what we talked about," he said. "This isn't what I agreed to." Emma's grip tightened protectively around the child. "We agreed to adopt a baby who needed a home," she replied, her voice growing steadier. "A baby who needed love." Daniel shook his head, frustration rising. "Don't twist it. You know what I meant." Emma felt her heart begin to race. "No, Daniel, I don't. Explain it to me." He hesitated for a moment, as if even he knew how terrible his words would sound. But then he said it anyway. "I didn't expect this." He gestured toward the baby. "Do you have any idea what people will say? My family? Our friends? Everyone will question us." Emma stared at him, disbelief washing over her like a wave. "So that's what this is about? People? It's about our life." Daniel snapped. "The life we built, the reputation we have. This changes everything." Emma felt something inside her begin to break, but it wasn't her strength. It was her illusion of him. She looked back down at the baby, who shifted slightly, her tiny fingers stretching out until they brushed against Emma's hand. Instinctively, Emma curled her finger around them. The baby held on, and in that simple, silent gesture, Emma felt something powerful. Connection, responsibility, love. "Her name is Lily," Emma said softly, almost like she was saying it more to herself than to him. Daniel let out a sharp breath. Don't do that. Do what? Make this real, he said. We can still fix this. Emma's head snapped up. Fix this? Yes, he insisted. We can talk to the agency. Explain that there was a misunderstanding. It's not too late to... No, Emma's voice cut through the room, firm and unshakable. Daniel fell silent. Emma stood taller now, her fear slowly turning into clarity. She is not something to return, Daniel. She is not a mistake to undo. She's not ours, he argued. Emma looked him straight in the eyes. She is mine. The words landed with finality that neither of them could ignore. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. You're being emotional. You're not thinking clearly. No, Emma said quietly. For the first time, I am. The baby let out a soft cry, and Emma instinctively rocked her gently, whispering comforting words. The sound of her voice was calm, steady, filled with a warmth that Daniel hadn't heard in a long time. She needs us, Emma said. Daniel stopped pacing. No, she needs you, because I can't do this. Emma's heart skipped a beat. You can't or you won't? Daniel didn't answer right away. And that silence said everything. I won't live a life where I'm constantly judged, he finally said. Where every room I walk into, people look at us differently. I didn't sign up for that. Emma felt tears sting her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not now. So that's it, she asked. That's all it takes for you to walk away? Daniel grabbed his coat, avoiding her gaze again. You made this decision without thinking about me. Emma let out a quiet, almost broken laugh. No, Daniel, I made this decision because I was thinking about someone who had no one. The baby stirred again, as if sensing the tension. Emma held her closer, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. She has me, Emma whispered. Daniel moved toward the door, his hand once again resting on the handle. You're choosing this child over your marriage, he said. Emma looked up, her eyes clear despite the pain. No, I'm choosing love over fear. For a brief moment, it seemed like Daniel might say something else, like he might hesitate, reconsider, stay. But he didn't. You'll regret this, he said coldly. Emma shook her head slowly. No, I won't. And with that, Daniel opened the door and walked out. The sound of it closing echoed louder than anything else. Emma stood there, alone now, alone but not empty. She looked down at Lily, who had finally settled, her tiny face peaceful once again. Emma traced her fingers gently across the baby's cheek, feeling a warm spread through her chest despite everything that had just happened. Her life had just fallen apart, but somehow it had also just begun. Emma took a deep breath, holding Lily closer. I've got you, she whispered softly. And for the first time since those devastating words were spoken, the silence in the room didn't feel broken anymore. It felt full. The first night at home felt heavier than Emma had imagined. The house was quiet, too quiet. No footsteps, no voice calling her name, no presence of the man who once filled every corner of this place. Daniel was gone, and the silence he left behind felt louder than any argument. But in the middle of that silence was Lily, crying. Emma rushed into the small nursery she had prepared weeks ago, her heart racing as she carefully picked Lily up. The baby's cries were soft but desperate, like she was searching for comfort in a world she didn't yet understand. It's okay. I'm here, Emma whispered, gently rocking her. Those words became Emma's routine. Every night, every morning, every moment. Weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and endless worry. Emma barely had time to think, yet somehow her mind never stopped. Bills began to pile up on the kitchen table. Without Daniel's income, things were tight. Emma had some savings, but they were shrinking fast. She started working from home, taking on small freelance jobs, writing, editing, anything she could manage while caring for Lily. It wasn't easy. There were days she worked with one hand while holding a bottle in the other. And still, she kept going. Because every time she looked at Lily, she was reminded why she couldn't give up. But not everyone saw it that way. The whispers started slowly. At first, it was just curious glances from neighbors. Then came the quiet conversations that stopped the moment Emma walked by. Some people smiled politely, but their eyes told a different story. One afternoon, Emma took Lily for a walk in the park. The sun was warm, and for a brief moment, everything felt peaceful, until two women sitting on a nearby bench began talking, loud enough for Emma to hear. "Is that her?" one asked. "Yes," the other replied. "That's the one who ruined her marriage." Emma kept walking, her steps steady, but her chest tightened. She could have adopted any child. The first woman continued, "Why make life harder for herself?" Emma stopped, not because she wanted to confront them, but because she needed a moment to breathe. Lily stirred in her stroller, letting out a soft giggle as she reached for the hanging toy above her. Emma looked down at her and smiled. And just like that, the voices around her didn't matter anymore. "She didn't ruin anything," Emma whispered softly. "She saved me." That night, Emma sat on the couch, exhausted, holding Lily close as she slept. The television played quietly in the background, but Emma wasn't watching. Her mind drifted back to everything she had lost. Her marriage, her sense of security, the life she thought she would have. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if Daniel was right? What if this really was too much? Lily shifted slightly, her tiny hand resting against Emma's chest. And in that moment, Emma felt again that same quiet strength. "No," she whispered. "This is exactly where I'm meant to be." Days turned into months, and slowly, things began to change. Lily grew stronger, more expressive. Her cries turned into laughter. Her tiny movements turned into curious exploration. Her first smile came unexpectedly. Emma had been having a rough day. Nothing was going right. Work was overwhelming, and she hadn't slept properly in days. She sat on the floor, feeling completely drained, when Lily suddenly looked at her and smiled. A real smile, bright, pure, full of life. Emma froze, and then she laughed. Not a small laugh, but a deep, emotional one that came from somewhere she thought she had lost. "Was that for me?" Emma asked, her eyes filling with tears. Lily responded with a soft coo, as if answering. That moment became Emma's turning point. From that day on, she stopped focusing on what she had lost and started embracing what she had. But the world didn't stop testing her. One afternoon at the grocery store, Emma stood in line, gently bouncing Lily in her arms. The baby was unusually cheerful that day, smiling at everyone she saw. A woman standing behind Emma suddenly spoke. "She's adorable," she said. Emma turned, smiling politely. "Thank you." The woman tilted her head slightly, studying them. "She's not yours, is she?" The question wasn't new, but it still stung. Emma adjusted Lily in her arms, her voice calm but firm. "She is my daughter." The woman raised an eyebrow. "I didn't mean to offend you. I just thought, well, you know." "No," Emma interrupted gently. "I don't." The woman hesitated, clearly uncomfortable now. "I just meant it must be difficult." Emma looked down at Lily, who was now playing with the edge of her sleeve, completely unaware of the conversation. Emma smiled. "It's the easiest decision I've ever made," she said. The woman didn't respond, and she didn't need to. Emma had already said everything that mattered. By the time Lily turned 1, Emma's life looked very different. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was real. They had routines now. Morning walks, bedtime stories, quiet afternoons filled with laughter and small discoveries. Emma had learned to manage her work better, finding a rhythm that allowed her to provide for them while still being present. And most importantly, she had found confidence. Not the kind that comes from approval, but the kind that comes from knowing you made the right choice, even when no one else understands it. One evening, as Emma tucked Lily into her crib, she paused for a moment, watching her. "You changed everything," Emma whispered softly. Lily blinked sleepily, her tiny fingers curling around Emma's hand. Emma smiled, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "But you didn't make my life harder," she added. "You made it meaningful." As she turned off the light and stepped out of the room, Emma realized something she hadn't fully understood before. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, and she wasn't alone. Because in a world that questioned her, judged her, and doubted her. She had one person who never would, Lily, and that was more than enough. 5 years can change everything, or nothing at all. For Emma, those 5 years had reshaped her entire world. The pain she once carried had softened into quiet strength. The uncertainty that once kept her awake at night had been replaced with purpose. And at the center of it all was Lily. Now 5 years old, Lily was full of life, curious, fearless, and endlessly kind. She had a laugh that could brighten even Emma's hardest days, and a way of asking questions that made the world feel bigger, deeper, more meaningful. Mama, why do clouds move? Mama, can trees talk to each other? Mama, do you think I was a star before I came here? Emma never rushed her answers. She listened. She smiled. She held on to every moment, because she knew how fragile happiness could be. Their life wasn't luxurious, but it was full. Mornings began with sleepy hugs and messy breakfasts. Afternoons were filled with drawings, stories, and the occasional chaos of spilled juice or glitter on the floor. Emma worked hard, harder than she ever had, but she made it work, and somehow they were happy, until the day the past returned. It was a quiet afternoon in the park. Lily ran freely across the grass, chasing bubbles that floated through the air like tiny pieces of magic. Her laughter echoed, light and carefree, as other children joined in. Emma sat on a nearby bench, watching her with a soft smile. This, right here, was everything she had fought for. Peace, joy, a life built on love. But then something shifted. Emma felt it before she saw it. That strange, unexplainable feeling of being watched. She turned her head slowly. And there he was, Daniel, standing at a distance, just beyond the trees. For a moment, Emma couldn't breathe. He looked different, older. The sharp confidence he once carried had faded, replaced by something heavier, something quieter. Regret. Their eyes met. And suddenly, 5 years didn't feel like 5 years at all. It felt like yesterday. Emma's heart began to race. But she didn't move. She didn't call out. She didn't look away. She just watched. Daniel hesitated, as if unsure whether he had the right to step closer. But eventually, he did, slowly, carefully, like someone approaching something fragile. Emma, he said, his voice low, almost uncertain. She stood up, instinctively glancing toward Lily, who was still playing, completely unaware. Daniel, Emma replied, her tone calm but guarded. He followed her gaze. Is that her? He asked softly. Emma didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at Lily, really looked at her, the way her curls bounced as she ran, the way her smile lit up her entire face. Yes, Emma finally said, that's Lily. Daniel's eyes lingered on the little girl, and something in him broke. She's beautiful, he whispered. Emma crossed her arms slightly, a quiet barrier forming between them. She is... For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The sound of the park filled the silence. Children laughing, birds chirping, the soft rustled leaves in the wind. Normal sounds. But nothing about this moment felt normal. I didn't expect to see you here, Emma said. I didn't expect to see you at all, Daniel admitted. I've thought about this moment more times than I can count. Emma raised an eyebrow slightly. Have you? He nodded, his expression heavy. Every day. Emma studied him carefully. This wasn't the same man who had walked out of that hospital room without looking back. This man looked tired, not physically, emotionally. What do you want, Daniel? She asked directly. He took a deep breath, as if preparing himself. I want a chance, he said. Emma let out a quiet, almost disbelieving breath. A chance? To fix what I broke, he clarified. To be part of her life, of your life. Emma's jaw tightened slightly. 5 years. 5 years of silence. Of absence. Of doing everything alone. And now he wanted a chance? You don't just get to come back because you feel guilty, Emma said, her voice steady but firm. I know, Daniel replied quickly. And I don't expect forgiveness. Not right away, maybe not ever. But I had to try. Emma looked at him for a long moment, searching his face. What changed? She asked. Daniel hesitated. Everything, he said quietly. The life I thought I wanted, it didn't mean anything without the people I pushed away. Emma didn't respond. I was scared, he continued. Scared of judgment, of losing control, of what people would think. And in trying to protect all of that, I lost what actually mattered. His voice broke slightly. I lost you, he said. And I lost her before I even knew her. Emma felt a flicker of something deep inside her. Not forgiveness, but understanding. Still, understanding was enough. You didn't just lose us, Daniel, she said. You chose to leave. He nodded slowly. I know. And do you have any idea what that did? Emma continued. The nights I stayed awake wondering if I could do this alone, the way people looked at us, the questions I had to answer, questions she will one day ask. Daniel lowered his gaze, unable to meet her eyes. I can't undo any of that, he admitted. No, Emma said. You can't. At that moment, Lily's voice rang out across the park. Mama, look. Emma turned just in time to see Lily running toward her, her face glowing with excitement. Look at the bubbles. Lily laughed, pointing behind her. Emma knelt down, opening her arms as Lily ran straight into them. I see them. Emma smiled, hugging her tightly. Lily giggled, then noticed Daniel standing nearby. She tilted her head curiously. Mama, who's that? She asked innocently. The question hung in the air. Daniel's breath caught. Emma felt her heart pound again, but this time it wasn't from shock. It was from the weight of what came next. She looked at Daniel, then back at Lily, and in that moment, she realized something important. The past had returned, but this time, she was the one in control. That night, after the park, everything felt heavier. Emma moved through the house quietly, as if even the walls needed time to process what had happened. Lily had fallen asleep quickly, exhausted from playing, her tiny hand still clutching the corner of her blanket. Emma sat beside her, watching her breathe. 5 years. 5 years of building this life, piece by piece. And now, Daniel was back, not as a memory, but as a question. Emma leaned back in the chair, her eyes still fixed on Lily. She remembered the hospital room, the words, the door closing behind him. She remembered the nights she cried silently so Lily wouldn't hear, the days she smiled through judgment, through whispers, through doubt. She had survived all of it without him. So why did his return feel so unsettling? Because it wasn't just about her. It was about Lily. Emma gently brushed Lily's hair back. I'll always protect you, she whispered. And she meant it. The next morning felt unusually tense. Lily woke up cheerful as always, unaware of the shift in the air. Mama, can we go to the park again? She asked, smiling. Emma forced a soft smile. Maybe later. But Emma knew something had to happen before that. And right on time, there was a knock at the door. Emma closed her eyes briefly, then walked toward it. When she opened it, Daniel stood there again, not confident, not demanding, just waiting. Hi, he said quietly. Emma stepped outside, closing the door behind her. You came back, she said. I told you I would, he replied. Emma studied him for a moment. Why now, Daniel? After all these years. He took a breath. Because I finally understand what I lost. Emma crossed her arms. And what exactly do you think that is? He didn't hesitate. A family. Emma let out a quiet breath, almost a bitter one. You had a family. I know, he said softly, and I walked away from it. Silence settled between them, not angry, just honest. I can't undo that, he continued, but I can choose to be better now. Emma shook her head slightly. Being better now doesn't erase what happened. I'm not asking it to, he said. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I've changed. Emma looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Inside the house, she could hear Lily humming to herself, a small, innocent sound, a reminder of what truly mattered. You don't get to come back into my life like nothing happened, Emma said firmly. Daniel nodded. I know. And you don't get to confuse her, Emma added. She doesn't understand any of this yet. I wouldn't do that, he said quickly. Emma looked back at him. Then what would you do? Daniel paused. I'd start small, he said, at your pace. At her pace, however you decide. Emma watched him carefully. No excuses, no pressure, just patience. That was new. Over the next few days, Daniel did exactly what he promised. He didn't push his way in. He didn't demand time. He simply showed up and waited. Sometimes he stood across the street when Emma and Lily played outside. Sometimes he left small gifts, books, coloring pencils, without expecting anything in return. Lily noticed. "Mama, who keeps leaving these?" she asked one afternoon, holding a small storybook. Emma knelt beside her. "Someone who wants to be your friend." Lily smiled. "Can I meet him?" Emma hesitated. This was the moment she had been thinking about, not as a woman, but as a mother. "Okay," she said gently, "but I'll be right there." That evening, Emma stepped outside with Lily, where Daniel was waiting. Lily held Emma's hand tightly at first, peeking curiously from behind her. Daniel knelt down, keeping his distance. "Hi," he said softly. Lily tilted her head. "Hi." "I'm Daniel," he added. "I'm Lily," she replied proudly. Daniel smiled, but his eyes filled with emotion. "I know," he said quietly. Emma stood nearby, watching every detail, every word, every reaction. She wasn't just observing Daniel. She was protecting Lily. That night, Emma sat alone again, thinking. Things were changing. Slowly, carefully, but changing. The question wasn't whether Daniel had regret. It was whether he had consistency. The next day, when Daniel came again, Emma stepped outside before he could say anything. "We need to be clear," she said. Daniel nodded. "Okay, you can be part of her life," Emma continued, "but not as my husband." The words were calm but final. Daniel looked down briefly, then back up. "I understand. This isn't about us anymore," Emma said. "It's about her." "I know," he replied. "And if you're going to be in her life," Emma added, "you show up for her. Not when it's easy. Not when you feel like it. Every time." Daniel nodded again. "I will." Emma took a breath. "This isn't a second chance for our past," she said. "It's a test of who you are now." "I won't waste it," he said quietly. Emma studied his face one last time. Then she stepped back slightly. "Then start proving it." Weeks turned into months. Daniel stayed. Not perfectly, but consistently. He showed up to small moments, park visits, school events, quiet afternoons. And slowly, Lily began to trust him. Emma never rushed it, never forced it. She simply allowed it while staying watchful, because she knew something important now. Love wasn't just about feeling. It was about choosing. Every single day. Emma had made her choice years ago. And now, Daniel was finally learning what that meant. In the end, Emma didn't go back to the life she had before. She didn't rebuild what was broken. She built something new, stronger, clearer, and on her terms. Because she wasn't the woman who had been left behind anymore. She was the one who decided who stayed.